Yo, what up? And this is Worst to Least Worst presented by Hoops FYI. And today we're going to do a mid-season review of each team from one division to another division, going over records and stats and how each team ranks within their division and the league statistically. In today's review, we're going to take a look at the Pacific Division. Before we jump into the review, make sure you bless the page by clicking up subscribe button, pull up a seat, grab a drink, a snack, and join us on our other media outlets, TikTok, Instagram, and make sure you become a member at hoops.fyi. And be sure to get in the comment section to voice your thoughts. All right, let's take a look at the mighty Pacific Division coming out of the break. The teams in the division collected a record of 157 wins and 114 losses for a win percentage of .579, first in both the Western Conference and the league. The division is made up of the San Francisco Warriors, the Clippers, Lakers, Suns, and the Sacramento Kings. Yes, I said Sacramento. All five of these teams are over 500, and all five of those teams were in playoff position. One of those teams has the highest rated offense, and three of those teams are in the top 5 offensively in the conference. However, one team falls in the bottom 5 in the conference offensively. Switching to defense, none of those teams are within the top 5 defensive ranks in the conference, and only one team is in the bottom 5 in the conference defensively. Let's take a look at number 5 in the Pacific Division heading out of the break. We got the Golden State Warriors at number 5. They had a record of 27 wins and 26 losses, putting their win percentage at .509. This landed them in the 10th spot, or the play-in game, in the conference. In terms of offense, the Warriors had an offensive rating of 117.9, ranking them second in the Pacific Division and third in the Western Conference. They topped the division and were 6th league-wide for points per game, scoring an average of 119.89. They ranked last in the division and 15th in the league with a field goal percentage of 47.4. They led the division and had the 4th spot league-wide with an average of 29.04 assists per game. And they also led the division and ranked third in the league in rebounds per game with a 46.67 average, while their offensive boards per game average of 12.43 placed them first in the division and 4th in the league. Defensively, they had a rating of 116.6, placing them last in the Pacific Division. They also ranked last in the division and 26th in the league, allowing an average of 118.04 points per game, or points against per game. However, they were first in the division and 8th in the league for 3-point percentage against, with a rate of 35.7%. On the downside, they averaged 6.65 steals per game, placing them last in the division and 27th league-wide. And lastly, they ranked 27th in the league for blocks per game, averaging 4.13, which placed them in the bottom 5 in the league. At number 4, we have the LA Lakers with a record of 30 wins and 26 losses for a win percentage of .536, putting them 9th in the West. When it comes to offense, they had an offensive rating of 114.5, last in the Pacific and 26th in the conference. Coming out of the break, they were last in the division and 13th in the league in points per game, scoring 117. However, they were top 5 in the league at number 4 in field goal percentage, shooting 49.4%. The 3-point percentage was last in the division, but only 14th in the league at 36.8%. So the Pacific Division teams did a pretty good job sniping collectively, having all 5 teams being in the top 14 from 3. And finally, they ranked last in the division and 30th in the league in offensive rebounds per game, averaging 8.23. In terms of defense, their defensive rating sits at 114.7, ranking them third within their division. And they allow an average of 117.13 points per game, which also places them third in the division. They led the division and held the 5th spot in the league with an average of 34.44 defensive rebounds per game. But on the other hand, they were 22nd league-wide and last in the division in total rebounds per game, averaging 42.67. For the number 3 team, we have the Sacramento Kings. They held a record of 31 wins and 23 losses for a win percentage of .574, which ranked them 8th in the conference, another play-in game position. On the offensive side, they had a rating of 116.6, which was 4th within the Pacific Division, and they averaged 118.41 points per game, which was 2nd in the division. Moving on to their defense, the Kings have a defensive rating of 116.1, fourth within the division. They give up an average of 117.93 points per game, which was also fourth in the division. They were last in the league in defensive three-point percentage at 39.8. They had the lowest defensive field goal percentage in the division and 22nd in the league at 48.7. Their defensive three-point percentage was also the lowest in the division, but was also last in the league at 39.8. And lastly, they rank last in the division and 28th in the league in blocks at 4 blocks per game. Coming in at number 2, we have the Phoenix Suns with a record of 33 wins and 22 losses for a win percentage of .600. Coming out of the break, they were 7th in the Western Conference. So they were also in the playoff game, or they were also in play-in game position. When looking at their offense, the Suns tallied an offensive rating of 117.8, which placed them 3rd in the division and 4th in the conference. They were 4th in the division and averaged 117.6 points per game, 1st in the division and 3rd in the NBA in field goal percentage at 49.8%, and 27th in the league and last in the division in fewest turnovers at 14.3 per game. On the defensive end, their rating was 114.5, putting them 2nd in the division. They allowed an average of 114.35 points per game, also ranking them 2nd in the division. They were best in the division and 7th throughout the league in defensive field goal percentage at 46.6%, and they were leading the division and 5th in the league in blocks per game with 6.04. And now at the top spot in the top division, or the Pacific Division, coming out of the break was the LA Clippers, the Los Angeles Clippers. They held a record of 36-18 for a win percentage of .667 at 3rd in the West. Offensively, the Clippers were tops both in the division and league in offensive rating at 119.7. They were scoring an average of 118.26 points per game for 3rd in the division and shooting 39.4% from 3, leading the division and 2nd in the league in that category. Furthermore, they led the division and held the 8th spot league-wide in fewest turnovers per game at 12.15. However, they were last in the division and 20th in the league in assists with 26.04 per game. On the defensive end, they held the top spot in the division with a rating of 114.3. They held their opponents to 112.7 points per game, which led the division and was 9th in the NBA. They were last in the division and 15th in the league in defensive rebounds per at 32.78. which says a lot about the division, having 5 teams in the top half in defensive rebounds as well. And they also had, I think it was 3-point percentage. I'll have to go back to that, but having having all of their teams in the top 15 in multiple categories says a lot about the division. And finally, they led the division. The Clippers led the division and held the 5th spot in the league with an average of 7.96 steals per game. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening to this episode of Worst to Least Worst by Hoops FYI. And that's it for the Pacific Division. A really good division, probably tops in the league from top to bottom. 2 of the last 4 champions come out of the division. 8 of the last 9 Western Conference champs were from the division. They have the 2 faces of the league in Steph and LeBron. Though they are both in the latter parts of their career, you know, they're still putting in work. They got a bunch of MVPs in this division. You got Russell Westbrook. You got Russell Westbrook. You got James Harden. You got a bunch of hitters in this division. But man, all I can say is history doesn't repeat itself. But we shall see. Before we get up out of here, remember to hit the subscribe button, like, voice your opinion in the comment section, and follow us on TikTok and Instagram. And subscribe to the community at hoops.fyi. Until next time, peace.